Hi, everybody. The question we are answering today is how to avoid being diagnosed with dementia or memory loss, regardless of your age, young, midlife, or later in life. Did you know that research studies confirm that changes in the brain and your mental abilities and your cognition decline as much as 20 years earlier than an actual diagnosis of cognitive impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's? What you may not know is that cognitive declines, memory, right, are connected to chronic disease, which is what we're going to talk about in this video. So if you are interested in learning how to avoid being diagnosed with dementia or memory loss later on in life, stay with me because I'm going to offer background about dementia and Alzheimer's disease that you may not know about, and talk about risks and risky behaviors that contribute to these diagnoses. There are things that you may be doing today that are going to result in a memory diagnosis 20 years or 30 years from now that you can stop, that you can avoid. So there's a lot of confusion about what the word dementia means or what dementia is. Well, if you think of dementia like this umbrella up here, it's a term for diseases that affect the brain, which is in here. And midlife, so 30s, 40s, 50s, is when most people are diagnosed with some health condition called by the healthcare industry a chronic disease. Conditions like heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, breathing issues, asthma, bronchitis, COPD, arthritis. Some people have cancer. Midlife is also a time when neurodegenerative diseases begin to appear. And neurodegenerative is a big healthcare word. And really what it means is conditions that affect the brain, right? And so dementia it's a brain disease. It's not something that is always preventable depending on your lifestyle or depending on your family history, but there's a lot that can be done to prevent it. Now, Alzheimer's is a subset of dementia. So you have dementia up here and then you have Alzheimer's here. There's also other types of memory loss, but Alzheimer's is about, according to statistics, 60 to 70% of dementia cases. So why am I here talking to you about this? Because many caregivers ask. I'm Pamela D Wilson. I'm a caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker with almost 25 years of professional and personal experience helping older adults and caregivers. And the reason that I can talk about dementia is that I was a professional care manager, a court-appointed guardian, and a medical and financial power of attorney for many clients diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's, and other brain disorders. So I made medical decisions for these people. I managed their day-to-day medical care, where they lived, how their bills got paid. So if you're interested in helping other people, click below, follow my channel, like this video, and comment, even if it's only to say nothing more than thank you. Your one thank you could help 10 other people or 100 other people find their way here to my channel. If you go below, there are links to my website, online programs, my podcast, articles, library, a lot of helpful information. So I want to talk about the most common types of dementia. These are words that you've probably heard, and maybe you don't know what they are. So there's Alzheimer's and there's vascular dementia. These are the two common types of memory loss. An increase in the diagnosis of dementia begins at around age 65. So if you track that back 20 years, these conditions started around 40 or 45. How old are you today? Are your habits, are things that you're doing contributing to memory loss that you're going to have in 20 years? 50% of people over the age of 80 have some type of memory loss. Now, it could just be age-related memory loss, but if you have health conditions, it could be Alzheimer's or a type of dementia. So other words that you might have heard for dementia: Lewy Body Dementia, Parkinson's disease dementia, frontotemporal dementia, and progressive supranuclear palsy. I know these are all big words, but they are diagnoses that my clients have had. These dementias, these memory conditions, they can happen from a traumatic brain injury. You fall and you hit your head, or you have a car accident and you hit your head. There's alcohol-related dementia. Multiple sclerosis can result in memory loss. There are brain tumors that can result in memory loss. Normal pressure hydrocephalus can result in memory loss. So I want to give you an example, a true story of one of my clients, of how early changes that were not noticed by her husband, by this woman's husband, by the family, really indicated that there was something going on, but they had no idea that anything was going on. So one of my clients was a married couple, and the wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And I was helping the family with care coordination and recommendations. And I sat down and I talked to the husband one day, and he says, Pamela, I should have caught this. I should have caught this so long ago, but oh my gosh, I wasn't paying attention. So he told me a story that about 10 years earlier, his wife, who was normally super active, doing a lot of things, changed some of her daily habits. His wife actually wrote and distributed the newsletter for their church. She was very active in the church. And she was always very accurate. She never missed a deadline, wrote wonderful articles, just never had a problem. And so she started to have issues with not sending the newsletter out on time. And then maybe there were some typos in the newsletter, or there were some links that didn't quite work. And people started to bring this up. Then she was having issues actually using her computer, typing, using the mouse, remembering how to open up programs and things like this. And so eventually she just said, I'm not doing this anymore. Let me have somebody else take over. Now, the other thing that she did, which is interesting, was she also was very active in the arts. She acted in small community plays. And there was a point where she just couldn't remember her lines anymore. And so she stopped doing that. So two very significant parts of this woman's life, the activity in the church and the newsletter and the acting in plays and all of that, she gave it up. And her husband just thought, she's getting older. Maybe she just doesn't want to do it anymore. Well, those were the very, very early signs that something was wrong, that she had the early beginnings of memory loss and Alzheimer's. And he didn't think to take her to the doctor. He didn't think to do anything about it until it got worse. And she started wandering out of the house in the middle of the night. She started seeing people and talking to people that weren't there. Finally, then, the family sought a diagnosis. And in some families, there can be this idea of, we just don't want to know. We don't want to talk about dementia or Alzheimer's because heaven forbid we talk about it and somebody has it, and then what if the child has it or somebody else gets it? Brings up all these emotions, right? So what happened with this woman was, she was losing the ability to type on her computer, to plan the newsletter, to think about the newsletter, to remember her lines. So there is this ability that we all have, and it's called executive function. It's another healthcare term. And what it means is it's the ability to do daily things that we do without really thinking a lot about. You pay attention, you organize a recipe to make dinner, right? You plan, you schedule a doctor's appointment, you call a friend, you say that you're going to meet them on Saturday at noon, and then you finish through with that task. Well, executive function is also this verbal working memory up here. So in the case of this woman, it was, if I want to create a newsletter, I need to know the date. And then I got to write the articles. And then I have to proofread the articles. And then I have to email the newsletter out. And then I may get some questions from the newsletter that I have to respond to. So it's kind of like all of the steps that we very easily think of when we want to do something. You want to make a recipe. Well, do I need the recipe? Do I need to make a list? Do I have to go to the grocery store? Then when I come home, how do I put all this stuff together? Am I baking it? Am I putting it on the grill? Am I frying it? Am I putting it in the fridge? How am I doing it, right? So taking a step back for this woman, she had a lot of health issues. She had some chronic diseases. Probably one of the top conditions is heart conditions. And so the healthcare system is going to call this vascular diseases because your heart pumps blood throughout your body, throughout your veins. And so if there's any blockages or clogs or somebody has a stroke, that can lead to less blood flow to your brain, even in people who appear healthy. And so this means that if you or your elderly parent has any type of heart conditions, if you don't manage these well, if you don't recognize them, if you don't work toward preventing them from getting worse, there's a higher probability that you or your parents might suffer from memory loss when older. So this vascular system circulates all the blood and the oxygen and the nutrients that you get from your food throughout the body. So what poses a risk to the vascular system? Well, being overweight can pose a risk to the vascular system. Smoking can pose a risk to the vascular system. Getting tongue-tied here. High blood pressure. And so it's important to realize or recognize if you have high blood pressure. Do you go get an annual checkup every year? Can you stop in the store that has a pharmacy that has one of those blood pressure cuffs and put your arm in there and just see what it is? 120/80 used to be the standard. Now it's kind of like 110/70. The lower it is, kind of the better it is, the less your risk of dementia. And then we add to vascular diseases, high cholesterol and high triglycerides. And these are things that clog the arteries, they clog blood vessels. And so going to get an annual physical every year, even if you think you're perfectly healthy, get all these things checked because you never know. Blood pressure doesn't really have signs unless it's really, really out of control. Diabetes doesn't really have signs unless it's really, really out of control. If you catch it early, if you identify it early, you can modify your habits and reduce the risks through being proactive that can then prevent memory loss in your later years. When you think about your body, maintaining the body is kind of like taking care of your car, right? So if you think of your car, you get the oil changed every 5 or 10,000 miles. You keep your radiator filled with fluid. You keep your windshield washer filled. Maybe in the winter you put on snow tires. All these things have to be constantly checked to make sure that your car is going to run well, right? Well, your body's the same way. You don't want, just as you don't want the fuel line or the oil line on your car clogging up, you don't want your blood vessels or your arteries clogging up from cholesterol or anything that's going to stop that blood flow, because that can result in a stroke. Simple things like being dehydrated means you're not drinking enough water. So dehydration for a car would be like your radiator overheating, right? Huge sign. Dehydration for your body, for older people, can be being mentally confused, being delusional, falling, things like that. So a lot of problems, mental confusion. So there's another term that you might hear from the medical community, and it's called ischemia. So it's another medical term, but it basically is a lack of circulation or blood flow to any part in your body. And when this happens, especially through a major artery, a stroke can happen. And when strokes happen, you can actually see them on a brain scan. You can see areas of the brain that have been affected by a stroke, and this can result in vascular dementia. My mother, who I'll talk about in a moment, had these little ischemic attacks. She had mini strokes, and I would see them when they happened because she would kind of just be talking to me. She would tune out for a minute and then she'd come back. But back then I really wasn't sure what was going on, but that's what was happening. My mom's vascular system, her arteries, they were clogged from so many years of chronic health issues and habits that I'll share. Okay, so my mother, Rose, God bless her, lifelong smoker. when she grew up, she was born in 1926. No talk of like a good diet or a bad diet. And smoking was just kind of like the cool thing to do back then. So everybody smoked. She smoked a pack of cigarettes a day for a lot of years. I remember when I was very young, in my teens already, 20s, 30s, in and out of the hospital all the time. She had bypass surgery, quadruple bypass surgery at the age of 60. So young to be having that. And she had a blood transfusion that related in other complications, which was hepatitis, a lot of issues. Her smoking caused stomach problems, which caused, believe it or not, vascular issues in all the veins and the arteries around her stomach. And what I learned years later, which I never knew, but my mother also had horrible indigestion, right? She burping, a hiatal hernia. I remember she would drink bottles of Maalox, right? And it just never helped. And I don't remember any of her doctors, telling her anything but, stop smoking. They didn't say, well, do you realize that your indigestion is because you're smoking cigarettes and you have a lack of circulation in your stomach? I think sometimes doctors don't explain things in ways that people understand. They just say, well, you have high blood pressure. They don't say, gosh, your high blood pressure might result in a stroke that could result in dementia. And by the way, you could have a heart attack and need bypass surgery. I mean, they don't talk about all these consequences. So consequences are extremely important when we think of what we want our lives to look like in 20 years. If you want to retire and travel and do all these things, you have to be healthy enough to do that. And that health starts today. It doesn't start when you're 65 and you retire. By that time, you've already lost 20 or 30 years of being proactive with your health. So one of the very interesting things that I get to do is create podcasts and articles and blogs. And so I'm going to put a link below to a radio program that I did called Tired of Caring for Elderly Parents. This particular podcast, it's episode number 20, featured an interview with an amazing doctor, Dr. Brooks Cash. He's a gastroenterologist. At the time, he was working in Houston at the University of Texas Health Science Center. I don't know if he's still there, but he shares what most people don't know about smoking and the digestive problems that people like my mother experienced, and then all of the problems that come from that. So if you smoke, or if you know anybody who does, this information can be amazingly helpful to you to prevent health issues today and in the future. So the link is below if you want to listen to this. So let's just talk about some other neurological changes that happen with age, right? Vision changes. We wear glasses. We wear contact lenses. Our sense of smell may change. Our sense of taste may change. Any of these changes, hearing loss, right, can be associated with memory loss. There are studies out there, people who can't hear and don't get hearing aids or don't find a way to be able to hear become isolated, right? It's like you're in this little bubble and you can't hear what's going on out here. And your ears and the functions that make your ears work don't work, right? So you have this almost like a problem with the car. It's a problem with your ears. So things stop working and you don't communicate and you communicate less. And so your brain functions less because it's not having to work as hard. It can't work. You just can't hear. So a lot of these little things that you may not even consider, hearing loss, vision loss, becoming inactive, smoking, high blood pressure, diabetes, COPD, all of these things contribute to other health conditions that you can get, but they also contribute to dementia. There's a huge number of people over age 65 who have 3 or 4 of these chronic diseases. And you know what else they have? They have dementia and memory loss. Because all of these chronic diseases that you can prevent today by being proactive, by learning about them, can prevent you from having memory loss later in life. So for all of us, me included, be aware of changes in your health. Seek regular medical care, annual checkups. Blood work, check your blood pressure, check your blood sugar, all of that. These can help you avoid memory issues later. So next step, if you haven't scheduled an annual doctor appointment, if you don't know what your blood pressure is, if you don't know what your blood sugar is, your cholesterol, your triglycerides, go find out. And then step on that scale. Is your weight in range? If it's not, figure out what you can do to bring it into range. Activity, other things that you should be doing. If you want to be healthy and live the life that you want and live the retirement that you want, you have to start today. I thank you so much for being here. I'm Pamela D Wilson. I am a caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker. Again, please like this video, follow my channel, post a comment, thank you. Your one thank you might help tens or thousands of other people find their way here. I will see you all again soon in another video.